Good.
That's all.
We'll go ahead and call our meeting to order. We'll start the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I would accept a motion to approve the agenda.
I make a motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Aye. Motion carries 5-0. Would accept a motion to accept the consent agenda.
I make a motion to accept the consent agenda.
I'll second.
And looking through, it looked like the budget stuff that changed was all due to hiring, the additional hires that we've had. Nothing else really changed. Is that true?
When you saw, the original to the revised was the amendment that was approved as part of the supplemental levy.
Okay,
Yes.
there's some
And
pieces too.
projected the hiring estimate.
Just a question about the personnel report. Where are we at as far as filling positions? Are we close? I mean, there's a good number on here, which is good, but I know some of them.
Yeah, so
And then-
teachers are all the way filled. 3 at the high school, 3 at the middle school. We ended up adding a half-time position over at the academy for combination PE and health, and then second grade at Purple Sage. AIDS continues to be a struggle, as we all know. Charlie, do you have off the top of your head how many outstanding we still have?
So I think that I'm probably still about 7. So the problem is, as we've hired some, we've lost some. And so we've kind of just been right around steady. But I think we're right around 7. We're 1 right now at the elementary. So we're making do, but come Monday, we're definitely down at the secondary level and are gonna have to do some hunting.
Are these warm bodies, or what are some of the qualifications needed around this?
So yes.
Yes,
High school diploma
Okay,
is a qualification, and so most of these positions are 1-to-1 aides. So what I did is when we went into a hybrid model, I went as lean as I possibly could. So if I had a student going Monday, Tuesday that needed a 1-to-1 aide, and I had a student going Wednesday, Thursday, I paired them up with one person. Well, now I gotta fill all those secondary positions. And so it's mostly 1-to-1, it's personal care or behavior for the most part. So they're taking care of students who have health needs or behavior needs, and just need that extra support to be able to be successful in the classroom.
Have we done any exit interviews or anything? Like, do we know why they're leaving? I mean, I know. Okay.
So really,
Financially.
truly, it's gonna come down to 2 different things. It's gonna come down to money. When we're competing against the Amazons and some of, those other positions. And then, some of it has come down to a lot of our paras also had other jobs. And so as we wanted them to go full-time, or as we've decided to go back to full-time, some of our half-time have gone back to their other positions because it was more lucrative for them.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. But we're trying.
It does feel like for every one we hire, we turn around and lose one. It's
Exactly.
been a pretty big rotating door on aides.
Any other discussion on the consent agenda? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Aye, motion carries 5-0. Takes us into our report section, and first up tonight is the 2019-2020 audit request. Dan, you want?
You bet. Good evening. My name is Dan Coleman. Did the audit for the school this last year. Worked together with Cheryl. And so I'll be presenting that to you tonight. Keep in mind that the financial statements that we're looking at are dated June 30th. So we're several months down the road now. We'll be talking about the numbers as they were at June 30th of this last year. Audit went well. All of the invoicing compliance items that we looked at during the audit, everything checked out like it should. This year was, with COVID and everything else, this year was a virtual audit. So all of the same audit procedures we did, except for, we just didn't come out to the school. Cheryl was able to send all that information electronically to us, and then I did the audit at the office. And we really appreciate her hard work, getting things ready, answering questions throughout the audit process, and just helping us out, getting all the documentation that we needed. So we appreciate her hard work there. But like I said, with all the audit procedures that we did, everything checked out like it should. So nothing negative to report to you there tonight. In the audit report, there were 3 reports I'll mention just briefly. Pages 1 through 3 are the auditor's report. That is where I express an opinion on the financial statements. We did issue an unmodified opinion for the school district, which is the best that I can give. Means that the financial information is accurate, materially correct, and the board can rely on it to make decisions on behalf of the school district. So good job there. Pages 39 and 40 is another report that we issued on internal control and compliance items. So when we do audits, we come out and we look at internal controls. We want to make sure that we have policies and procedures in place that protect the school's assets. One of the big ones that we've talked about just recently, just for example, is a bank statement review. So by somebody other than the bookkeeper, we like to have somebody else take a look at that bank statement once a month, review it for reasonableness, and then sign off on it. Internal controls are always changing. Seems like, as new ones come out that we see at other places, we'll communicate those to Cheryl, and we'll try to make sure that all of the schools implement internal controls that work to protect the assets. That report is a clean report as well. The third report I'll mention is pages 41 and 42. A school spends over $750,000 of federal money. It requires an additional single audit. Nothing that the school has to do, it just requires more work on my part. We look at each of those federal programs in a little bit more detail than you usually would. So everything checked out there as well. So nice job. To look at the school's finances this last fiscal year, we'll turn to page 9. School finance is broken down between major funds and non-major funds. What we're looking at on page 9 are the school's major funds. There are 4 of those. And because they are major funds, meaning more of the activity flows through those funds, it's required to be closer to the front of the audit report. So we'll discuss each of these major funds and we'll go from there. First column you're looking at is the general fund. Third number from the bottom, net change in fund balance, $263,615. So as of 6/30/20, our general fund balance increased $263,000. Very bottom number there, ending fund balance, $1,467,446. That's where the general fund balance ended. That, calculates to be about a 3/4 of a month operating reserve. We do suggest that the general fund have at least a month and a half to 3 months of an operating reserve. And so we're under that month and a half mark. And a lot of people, I guess, would look at that fund balance of almost 1.5 million and think that it's a lot of money, but on average, the school spends $2 million per month. So that's not even 1 month's of revenue sitting there in that fund balance. So it's a little bit light. I would like to see us increase that. I think we passed the supplemental levy this last year, right? And so that's going to help us out. Cheryl, did we have anything else to discuss with the general fund as far as that fund balance goes or anything there?
No, other than just comparing it to the way that it was budgeted last year. The budget that was approved for 19-20 projected our ending fund balance to be about $620,000. So really, we made a lot of progress and worked hard to cut and not spend all that was budgeted. So even though we're very aware that we would like to increase it and work to increase it this year, we feel good that we're, started the 2021 year stronger, which, given the circumstances, has really helped us. So.
That's a very positive takeaway this last year. I think that's great. Because ending at $600,000, I don't even know what your monthly payroll is, but that's probably not even enough to cover the payroll for a month, so definitely a good thing.
Sure, we added another almost 400,000?
Well, from what we had projected, what they anticipated to spend when you approved the budget back in 19, or excuse me, it would have been May of 20, May of 19, because of some anticipated growth and changes, it would have been about 600. So we actually added about 800,000 over what was projected, but there was a lot of, unknowns at that time. And so I think it was being budgeted very conservatively. So I think that, and especially now after being here, you're a better feel of what's included in that number. So, yeah. And then with the supplemental levy, we were able to bring some back into our revised budget to, hopefully we can add some additional to the ending fund balance for this year.
So that's projected right now,
Correct.
not
That's on the
reflected here.
2021. This is 1920.
Yeah, we're projected another
Correct.
right now. So
Good. Second column over there, Child Nutrition Fund. Let's look at the sixth number from the bottom there first, $112,271 in parentheses. So the Child Nutrition Fund had a loss this year of $112,000. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, fourth number from the bottom, we transferred in from the general fund $219,100. That restored that Child Nutrition Fund balance to zero. We had the loss this last year, but we've had several years of losses that really had that fund balance pretty low. And we transferred in money from the general fund to zero that out, which is usually what we recommend. I think that the Child Nutrition Fund could use some attention, and Cheryl's aware of this, and she's already dug into it. You probably could add to some of the details that I'm telling you now, but Child Nutrition Fund, I would look for that thing to break even over the long term. We may have a few lost years, but then we would have a few carryover years where that fund should carry itself. It's tough though, right? Because sometimes we get people in there that are very good cooks and very good at providing food, but they really don't understand the numbers. And I'm not saying that that's how it is here, but I do see that often. And you kind of need somebody in there that understands the numbers a little bit to be able to make this thing work out like it should. Other schools, they calculate the meals on a per meal basis, and they watch that pretty closely throughout the month to make sure that they end where they need to end. And so I think I'll visit with Cheryl. We'll take a look at it and see what we can do to improve that fund in the future. So
Have the COVID funds brought any relief to this year?
No, we are getting 100% the federal, but really it's a matter of our labor and food costs are too high. So we're working really hard to follow USDA standards and get our cost per serving down so that we can stay within our reimbursement rate. And so it's just going to take us a few months. I think that we can, some of the stuff that we had started last spring, then when COVID hit, that kind of spun us backwards. And so we got a little bit of extra funding through CARES for specific to food service, very small amount, under 20,000. That helped. And then with the changes in the training and the things that we're looking at right now, I think we can bring us a line. Right now I budgeted for this general fund in 2021 to supplement only 25,000. I feel that's a much more reasonable expectation. But we're watching it and working on it really hard. So
Can you tell me why, so we have the 112,000, but we took 219 out of the general fund. How come we didn't just take 112 and make that an actual
Because
zero?
we actually carried over negative for the last 3 years. This
So we-
one's lost money every year for the last.
So this 219 picks up this year plus the 2 previous years. Okay,
We didn't write it off last year in anticipation to make up some this year, knowing we were gonna have to carry it. But basically, Dan and I really talked about it and feel like it's a need to be able to start and have a good understanding of if we're going to lose money, we need to know where and why. And sometimes that's a valid choice, you know, we know we wanna provide certain quality of foods and things there, but we need to do have a good understanding, so. Just feel like from a financial standpoint, it's misleading not to take care of it, because it's really a responsibility of the general fund.
So the two components you said are food costs and labor, those are really two driving.
And a big part of it is, we get a lot of subsidized commodities. So a part of it is really understanding and utilizing those commodities and not paying retail for food. Because that's the only way, and that's why they're out there, that's the only way that a child nutrition program can stay, is utilizing those USDA commodities. So it's really.
Is it possible for you to get a list of those commodities for us, just to look at?
Yeah, what I can do is email you a link.
Cool.
And it's really interesting to see it out there because each district actually goes out and requests it. And they'll say, okay, we have this surplus, we have this available, we have this. And so we're working with the director from Caldwell who's really helping and educate us on what's out there and why and how to utilize all of that
Yeah,
stuff.
that'd be
So I'll
great.
send you guys the link on the state website. For the NSLP National School.
And we do audit schools larger than Middleton, and I do see that they have positive carryovers in the child nutrition fund. Every school is unique, right? And so you can't compare them, you know, apples to apples across the board, but we do audit larger schools that do make the child nutrition fund work out. So just so you know, I mean, it is possible, so. Third column over, bond fund. Very bottom number, ending fund balance, $8,364,402. Our debt payments this next fiscal year, some of those probably have been made already, I don't know. They're about $5,065,000 in principal and interest. So in the bond fund, what I like to see is that ending fund balance large enough to pay next year's debt payments, and it is. Plus, we've got a little $3 million extra sitting in that fund balance. And so it's, I would say it's pretty healthy. Fourth column over, capital construction fund, very bottom number there, $508,118. That is the 2019 bond that we passed. And as of June 30th, we still had about $500,000 there to spend. Probably be spent down this next fiscal year, I'm guessing.
Yeah, that was the money that was left, you know, for the Raptor system, you guys approved to put in security. So we do have some expenditures that we've already made this year. And then will also allow us to do some of the maintenance items. Hoping, because that's a fund we can't replenish easily.
Yeah.
So working with Blue to cover, you know, that list of the critical items that were on the maintenance list. We'll be working on that right now to do our report for the state. So we'll try to keep some in there just for catastrophic, you know, in case we had some kind of failure. So we'll try to keep some in there. But
is there a time lapse on that money? Does it expire after so long, or do we have to use it within so many years, or once it's there, it can sit until we decide to spend it?
you know, is it 3 years
That sounds familiar.
recommended?
Sounds familiar.
We just hopefully wrapped up, knock on wood, an IRS audit on the original bond issue from '08 and had to actually go out and find every expenditure that money was used for. And I think it's a 3-year window. And we should not have, we won't have a problem with that.
Thank you.
Those are the school's major funds. There are several non-major funds. Most of those zero out. A lot of those are federal funds that zero out at the end of the year, so there's not much to discuss there. But we do like to say they're behaving like they should. As far as recommendations go, we did notice some of the student funds dropped significantly this last year. We had a discussion with Cheryl, and so we understand why. They purchased some equipment, it sounded like, or not equipment, but
playground stuff here.
And then some of them could not fundraise because of COVID, and that really impacted how much carryover they had in those student funds. And so, big drops, but we understand why. A couple of GASB statements that we need to be aware of. Government Accounting Standards Board issues statements that have the rules that tell us what should show up in an audit report. One of those, GASB 84, says that student funds, they want additional reporting with those. We've discussed this in prior years, but because of COVID, they extended the dates on those by 1 year, which was nice. But GASB 84 has to do with student funds. It needs to be included in the district's finances in the future. This is applicable 6/30/21, so the year that we're in right now. So Cheryl needs to create a Fund 238, which was specified by the State Department of Education. And in the past, for student funds, all we really recorded in the financial statements was the cash balance that we had, and we called it due to student groups, kind of like a liability. Now they want to see the revenues and expenses also. So we're going to show that balance sheet information, but then also show how much the total revenues and the total expenditures in student funds for the year, and add that to the financial statements.
Is that broken down per school, per activity, per sport? How do they,
Yeah,
all of the
per
above?
school, and then we'll have it per group, either, it's club or activity. And so I'm working with each of the schools, because we have to shift completely the way that our accounting is set up for SBAA right now, and pull them over into Skyward, which isn't a bad thing. It'll make it easier for you guys to see. It's just a matter
More transparent.
of training it, and, because we'll probably have them still run things through the SBAA with their writing checks and keeping those
Absolutely.
funds separately, and then we'll pull them over into the general fund. But they used to run everything through, which was interesting, instead of a liability, they ran it in this district through the equity accounts. And so this year I'm switching it over to have them run everything through revenue and expenses. And they're great, they're picking it up quickly, and it'll be much cleaner for them, which will make it easier for me to pull it over into 238. But I was happy to have the year of reprieve.
So I'll just mention, it sounds like you have a good system set up and design it the way you want. Some schools will just tell their each building level to keep track of the student funds like they have in the past. Don't change it. At the end of the year, the business manager is going to make one adjustment just in the revenues and expenses. How much detail needs to be there? At least one revenue code and one expense code. If you guys want it by building level, you can do that, which it sounds like that's what you'd like to do. That's fine. It's just more work for Cheryl to maintain. But then internally, you guys might have reports that produce more information that you can look at. So I can see the benefits of doing it that way. But under audit, I just need to see one revenue code, one expense code, and I would be happy with that. GASB 87 has to do with leases. This is applicable 6/30/22, so we got a couple of years here. Lease accounting will change pretty significantly. They want a lot more disclosures than they have in the past. So the accounting will be more complex, take a little more time to put those leases together and those note disclosures. If a school does not have leases, not an issue, but if we do have leases, it will require more accounting work to do that. So
Is there any difference between the type of lease, of what it is? Does it matter?
that's going away. There used to be an operating lease, which the disclosure requirements for an operating lease, like a copy machine, were pretty lax. There wasn't a whole lot that you disclosed on it, and if it was immaterial, you just didn't even include it. And then you had capital assets, like if you did a lease on a bus, they treated that like a purchase, even though it was a lease, so you had to disclose that in the financial statements. Moving forward, it looks like they're not going to distinguish between the two. If it's a lease, it gets disclosed in the financial statements with all that extra work. That's what it's looking like right now.
So if we redo the lease for the month for the community center, is there a way we need to write it differently that would help with the accounting part of it, or it doesn't matter how
We're
the
the
lease is written?
recipient of that lease, so that's different than us leasing.
Leasing,
it.
oh, okay.
As a debt.
Okay.
Yeah, so.
We would have to do that on
their
won't
end.
happen.
Okay.
Right now, the leases that we do have leases on our printers and copiers, and then we also have an agreement on the technology that we're paying off those leases, so those won't carry over. But then we'll have one more year, right?
That's right.
Okay, so we'll have to look at the terms on the copiers and things. Right now, those are really the only leases that we have. We're not leasing any large equipment.
So you can't avoid the complex accounting if you don't lease, for like a bus purchase or equipment purchase, you can just pay cash for it. That's an option if it makes sense for the school, so. That's all I have for you tonight, but we can discuss anything else that you like if you have any questions.
You actually brought up something that's kind of maybe even kind of sidebar, but the community center does that end up being a loss / liability for us? Is that something we write off because of the kind of lack of income from anything?
Well, and you can clarify, but we as a school district don't pay taxes, so there's really no reason to write off,
Gotcha.
right, or depreciate. We do keep a fixed asset listing in our capital, our properties and things like that at this point, though there's no real financial indication, we don't pay taxes on it. They are paying their own costs of utilities, and they're doing their own maintenance and such on it right now. So it's really not costing the district. We're maybe losing revenue opportunities, but it's not an expense.
So we're not going in the hole, so it doesn't.
Right.
Gotcha.
It sounds like it's a triple net lease.
It's a
It's $100.
$100 a year.
Too old-fashioned
It's to
lease.
the city of Middletown, the Greater Parks Recreation
Mhm.
District. They use the auditorium, we use the back
Centennial
part of the
Ranch,
building
yeah.
for storage. And we just, that lease expires at the end of February, go ahead and extend on a month right now until we determine what the district's best use may be. I think they would like to acquire it, but we're not, kind of decided that it's the right thing for the district to sell it, so we'll be looking at that as well
Makes sense.
with our planning, facilities planning.
So with the CARES money next year, will that be audited through the state, not you, or how are we gonna, with all this COVID money, how will that run through? Will that be the state level audit, not?
He'll audit
Federal.
those funds as part of ours. We just got further clarification that they will want us to report it under a federal fund,
Yeah.
not under general fund.
Yeah.
And so it'll just be an additional separate operating fund of the revenue coming in expenses. So what I'm doing is maybe transferring expenses that we've already incurred out of the general fund, we transfer them out into the federal fund.
So our big four here, one of the columns will go away. One of these funds will be the CARES fund.
I don't know if they're gonna want that reported separately.
Could have several federal funds, so the COVID money has been very interesting, and along the way, we really thought at certain points that it would be nice to send out some emails to clarify, because it just has been really confusing up to this point. But if you've kept track of it like Cheryl has, you've noticed that every week or every couple of weeks, they change the way that they want this accounted for. And so we really have held off on issuing any kind of guidance on it. But yeah, they came out originally, said, hey, the stuff that's got to be spent by December 11th included in the general fund. You've got some child nutrition revenue that's coming in, put that in the 290 fund. And then you've got some technology money coming in, you could have some Idaho rebound money coming in. And they said all of that put into federal funds. So you may have a few additional funds next year, and probably federal funds, and we'll take a look at those funds along with all the other ones that we audit. In the beginning, the state said, hey, we don't want to deal with auditing this stuff, right? Let the auditors deal with it. You guys, when you got to do the audit, you can make sure the funds were spent correctly. Now we're back to a lot of that money is being spent through the GRA, just like the other federal funds. So you've got to submit some kind of narrative on how you spent it, and then the state's going to reimburse it. So they are partially auditing that because they're making you explain what you're spending that money on. And in the beginning, I thought that, when we came out to do the audit, we were going to check it all out. So I think it's going to be both. The state's going to look at it, a little bit. They're going to ask us to look at it a little bit during the audit next year. And there's up to it's 4 or 5 or 6 revenue buckets that schools can qualify for at this point.
Yeah.
How many are you guys getting?
I think we're at 5 plus the food service at 6.
Yeah.
Different pieces, parts, and,
Yep.
we're just tracking them individually so we can transfer if I need to, if they change their minds. But the fact that we have to expend it first, So as long as we identify it and be able to keep track and justify it, then if I need to move it from one fund to another, I can.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
based on what the recommendation is. But- And the dates are even changing, because now I just got notification of the GRA needing to, if we don't have it drawn down by November 25th, GRA payment, then I have to be able to do it projected. So some of the things that we anticipated to pay in December, I'll have to write a letter saying I'm gonna spend this, because they're talking about having to turn the money back if it's not spent quickly. So we may cut those checks earlier than we anticipated for that reason.
Oh,
Lori
okay.
and I are working on that right now.
Lori's gonna get dinner out of this, at least. For working late nights to get all those done.
So, yeah. We'll be in communication, I'm sure.
Yes.
Well, thanks, Dan. Appreciate it.
You
Thank
bet.
you, Cheryl.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Yes, thanks for all your hard work.
It's a little different than last year.
Making progress.
We just had a year to look at it.
I know, yes, I do. Mine weren't crossed.
Cheryl's a great resource, so I'm glad you guys have her, and she understands school finance really well, so that's very helpful.
Thank you.
So you guys have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks so much, Dan.
Yep, see ya.
Appreciate it.
Yeah,
You
sorry.
probably don't want to,
Yeah.
sorry. Need your help. Stay away.
The next report is the memorandum of understanding between the school district and the MEA.
There's a copy of that MOU posted to Assembly. I've had a chance to review it, but the district met with the union on the 29th of October to discuss the additional CARES allocations that we had received. That amount was roughly 1.3 million. And at the conclusion of that negotiations meeting, the district and the union agreed to what is listed on that MOU, which includes that certified and administrative staff members are going to receive $1,662.77. These cuts are part of the money that Cheryl and Dan were just referring to, so we have to have this dispensed by December 31st. And then each of our
What'd you say?
classified,
Hold on, you said 1662. Is it 1762 or 16?
1,762.
Okay, you said
Oh,
1,600.
sorry,
Okay.
77 cents. And then our classified staff members are each receiving $1,000. And that was the district's offer, and the union accepted that.
That total is
That
five,
total
586,
is
586K, is it?
586,000.
Just a little
So-
background. Oh, go ahead. I was gonna say Derek met with, the day we had negotiations with the committee before to talk about all this money. And I appreciate all the work they did before we got to negotiations, because as you heard the accountant say, you can't just pick a number. Like we couldn't just, I mean, we could say we're just gonna give each of our certified staff $1,700, but for accounting reasons, they needed a reason. So what we did is we said, under the assumption, which we know our teachers are putting in a lot of extra time, but we just figured 1 extra hour for 72 days, 76 days,
76 days.
76 days at their,
December 8th.
through December 18th, which is at their daily rate, which is like $23 and some cents. So there was actually a calculation done to get to this number. So that way that we meet the requirements for the federal. And then as we talked through this, and then we did the additional 500, because as we've heard even from Charlie, our EAs just aren't getting paid enough, and we had the money. But the other thing that I really appreciate about the pre-conversations and the work was that all that technology, we didn't have the money to pay for. So we were leasing that on a 5-year lease. If we wouldn't have used this COVID money to pay that off, that would be stuff that would be coming out of our general fund for the next, our levy money, which was really hard to get in the first place. So I just think it was very, to our taxpayers and to our teachers, it's a way that we can show our staff that we appreciate them, and we know they didn't get raises, and we're trying to, that we have this one-time money, but also to our taxpayers, we're accountable, we're watching our finances, we're being responsible, and I feel like overall it was a good choice. Every district did it different. I think CUNA, their teachers only got $350. Some got more, some got less, and I just hope that people can look at where we started just 4 months ago with, making all these cuts and having those conversations, that we actually even have money now to try and give back. And so I know it's not perfect, but I appreciate the hard work that went into the discussion, and I really think it was a win for all sides. I think financially it helped the district a lot, and also, just a little bit of appreciation on that other side to kind of try and make everyone back to whole as possible.
Thank you guys for your work on that.
Yes, thank you.
So that brings us to the action items for this evening. First action is we can approve and accept the 2019-2020 audit. Take a motion to do that.
I'll move to approve and accept the 2019-2020 audit.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Any more discussion? Just want to say thanks, Cheryl, for helping us keep our fund balance. I know that's you never let us forget that. He's your one champion to come in and let us know we're inching our way there.
You
So
notice I give them a.
that's
Still pretty low.
no, thank you. It's important when you realize how much we spend every month, right? It's
Cash flow is difficult when that fund balance gets so close.
so I do thank you for that because you brought it when you first came here. Was one of your big questions, like, Kirk, what? So thanks. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Aye, motion carries 5-0. Our next action item is the memorandum of understanding between the school district and the MEA. Take a motion to accept.
I move that we accept the memorandum of understanding between the school district and the MEA.
I'll second it.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Aye, motion carries 5-0. Next item for discussion is the senior class project and that requirement.
Lisa's going to give you a quick recommendation on that.
Okay,
So we worked with Mrs. Keithley on that and with Mr. Rhodes at the high school. The State Board of Education, starting last spring, started to waive some of these requirements due to COVID for last spring seniors, and then they looked into this year for this year's juniors and seniors as well, and some of those graduation requirements, and determined that they could go ahead and waive the senior project requirement for the seniors this year. So the State Board made that decision probably about a month ago at their last board meeting. And so we do have some seniors who are currently in what we call capstone, but it's all being done virtually at the high school. So we don't have a class that's correlated to it at this point. And so that's run through our counseling office. It's all virtual. In their work, speaking to the other SIC schools and the other schools around, really what the state has decided is schools that have their senior project scheduled as a class are going to continue on with the requirement. Those that do not have the project scheduled within a class are going to waive it for this year. And so their recommendation coming from the high school is for us to go ahead and waive that requirement for this year for our seniors of 2021, and then put together a committee with the counselors, administrators, and lead teachers, some of their leadership, internal building leadership, and really determine the best steps forward for what it will look like going into next year for the class of 2022. So that's the recommendation in front of you tonight, is to go ahead and allow us as a local organization to waive that, and then really put some plans in place of how we're gonna approach it next year and focus on that for seniors of 2020.
Can you give me some examples of some of the senior projects of the past?
Yeah, and it's varied year to year, and some of that has changed just on our own building leadership. But at one point, it was a 4-year portfolio that was scheduled into an advisory class. And then each year it was structured so they completed a certain portion of that portfolio. And at the end of it, they had a Google presentation, which was done either as a Google slideshow or done as a Google website. And then that had those artifacts that they could then carry on to post-secondary jobs. There was resume, cover letters, a lot of those components built into that project. So that's one portion. There was also service built into that. So they had service hours built into it, so they would go out in the community and do that. We've also seen it kind of drastically on the other end, where it's more of a research project, and then they take that research project and correlate it into a presentation, and then it meets kind of that minimum letter of the law, which is research and oral presentation is what they want to see within that senior project itself. So, and then from around the valley, you kind of see everything in between those two entities. But most really try to structure it into whether it's an advisory period or a homeroom class, whatever they want to call it, something yearly for a certain amount of time where they really get what next steps, which is the Idaho piece of it. So the state really pushes the Next Steps Idaho, and they try to take those components of Next Steps Idaho and really follow through on those to prepare students for whatever it is that they're going to do after high school, post-secondary, 2-year school, 4-year school, work field, whatever that might look like for them.
So if we waive that, do we lose that?
We don't. I think what we lose for this year
Good thing.
specifically is those seniors right now who would finish this semester finalizing the presentation. They've already done the work up to the presentation. They just wouldn't give the presentation. And then those seniors who are scheduled for next semester, they've already done, some of it is tied to their English class. So they're still going to complete some of the components within their English class because of the research. They've had junior interview situations. So we've still tried to build it in. We're not necessarily losing all of that, but we would lose the portion where they stand in front of a committee and present what they've done.
Which
It's
is
probably our
good
biggest
for
loss
them.
for this year, along with some smaller components with these second semester seniors. But
Wow.
given, this isn't my opinion, but given the situation we're in and the focus of where those students need to be right now, I do think one of the recommendations coming from the high school is it would be very important for them to focus on their academics, given kind of the ups and downs of the year, and try to focus on that rather than this presentation portion of the project.
Yeah, as long as we don't lose that, the real world, you
Yes.
know, how to fill out a job application, how to build a resume, that kind of stuff. That seems
Well,
like.
they have
that
to interview, they have to do a job interview.
It
They've
is,
done
and
job
we're working
interviews.
very
That's
hard,
how you do it.
with
So,
Mrs.
it's a good
Keithley
thing.
to keep that project intact. So that's
Yes.
the junior interview project.
Yes,
And we all agree it's
Well,
really
the-
important, the skills that it offers those students. What we've struggled with, the last spring, we got canceled because of the start of COVID. We're working to figure out what it could look like this year, given the circumstances we're in. But I know the exciting part about the conversation with the high school is they are gonna put that team together and really look at what this should look like as a 4-year program. And so in your guys', on that recommendation, they kind of said as 9th graders, here's what we would like to see 10th grade, 11th grade, 12th grade. And they're really pushing to move forward with that and really make it more embedded starting next year than maybe it has been as they've transitioned leadership in their school. So
yes.
that's the exciting part, is they're really looking at how they can continue.
I was gonna say, I've had a senior when it was the 4-year.
Yeah.
It's changed with
It has,
so, yeah. It's a good thing.
yeah.
Just, my question is the seniors this year, are there gonna be some that feel like they're cheated? Or are they gonna be like, woo-hoo?
Probably the opposite, right?
Well, realistically, yeah.
And, you know, they still continue to do the SAT. They're still continuing to do a lot of the college and career. And the fact that we're supporting the position with Mrs. Keithley up there, where she's really focusing on the college and career readiness of those students, there's opportunities all the time for those students, and she's pushing opportunities out all the time.
She
Yeah.
sends a lot of emails. I appreciate that
Yeah.
because there's been crickets before.
Yes.
So I
I think
appreciate that as a
With the
parent.
support of that system and what she's been doing, I feel confident that there's still gonna be provided opportunities. It's just like I said, they're not gonna be in that Google
They
Classroom.
just don't have that requirement.
Yes, with the accountability.
Looming over them, yes, yeah.
As long as there's some supplemental support system there for those skills that they may be missing out on. I think that's,
It's
Okay.
good, yeah.
Well,
So-
and what we'll do, and I know part of our goals, so when we write our continuous improvement plan and what that looks like for the state, we do work with those counselors to determine some of those goals. And one of those goals is that they meet with those seniors so often. And so they have goals built into that. So I feel like with us supporting them through those goals as well and helping with
Yes.
Mrs. Keithley's position, we have more built in that can support those seniors as they look to finish the year, this year.
Which is good.
So if we were to take an action, it would be a motion to accept the state board's recommendation for senior projects.
Sorry, say that again.
So if we were to make a motion, it would be to accept the state board's
Yes.
recommendations for senior projects
Yeah.
for the year 2021.
And what Charlie was just reminding me of, just as a side note, when we did that SAT day, I know that you guys are aware that we only had half of the students there. So we kept all those students, they finished the test at 1:00, but we kept them all there for the whole day, and we provided some of those supplemental opportunities. So we did FAFSA, we did college and career, we did those components in the afternoon. We have another day coming up this spring with the PSAT, and we'll do the same thing. So we do have those opportunities where we do continue to put those things in. I forgot about that. Thank you, Cheryl.
So I would entertain a motion.
I make a motion that we accept the State Department of Education recommendation to, or their recommendation regarding senior project graduation requirements for 2020, or for 2021,
If you want to say to be waived.
to be waived.
Second.
We need more discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right.
Aye, motion carries 5-0.
Thank you.
Our next potential action item is evaluating the category level and amend the reopening plans as needed.
I'm gonna give you a quick
Yes.
update. So that sheet that I just shared with you, I apologize, I meant to have that into Simply earlier today, but I was waiting on Southwest District Health to update their website to get accurate numbers on here, but my intent in creating this was just to give you a clearer picture of kind of what we have happening in each one of the schools. So we have the information that you guys have been tracking up at the top. So just today, the Middleton School District incident rate was adjusted, so it is now sitting at a 4.43. The census tract reading was adjusted last Thursday, but it should have actually been, had they been keeping the same timeline, it would have been adjusted last Monday and then again today. And it hasn't adjusted again since Thursday. So I don't know when we might see that move again, but that one's currently sitting at 4.22. And then a couple other data points I threw in here. So new this year, we have the Families First Coronavirus Response Act that came into effect, and it's good through December 31st, and that gives all employees some additional paid leave to use. There's 7 different reasons under that act that they can access that leave. So looking at just last week and into today, from 11/2 to today, we've had 16 staff members access that leave. We actually had 2 more this afternoon after we wrote this up. And then that last line, we've had 8 access that leave that have actually depleted all the leave they had available to them. So that leave is 2 full weeks, whatever their week looks like. So it could be up to 80 hours if they're a 40-hour-a-week employee. Beyond that, we just broke down by school. So looking only at last week and today, just what we have going on in each one of those buildings. I listed the enrollment under the school over on the left-hand side, and that enrollment is adjusted. So that's only the kids that we have in the buildings. We did see some fluctuation with our online school when we opened registration. We now have, we had some move out, some move in, for a net of about 20 more into the online school. So it's still sitting 450, 440-ish.
Yeah.
So the first line in each one of those is just what we had as far as student absences in those buildings, followed by staff absences. And then if they have been put into absence management to be filled by a sub, how many times we were unable to secure a sub for those positions.
And how, do we know, do we have some comparative information, like how does this compare to the same time last year? Or in multiple years past?
I do not have that right now. I can certainly create that. I feel like, and Lori might be able to speak to this too, because she helps run absence management and all of the sub vacancies. I feel like our staff has really tried to be really careful this year about being gone. They haven't been gone unless they really truly are sick. And then of course, some of them are out on quarantine. We've had a lot of positive spouses that it then keeps our teacher out for 14 days since their last exposure. So I can't say for sure how this compares to last fall, we can run that.
Yeah,
Can I make just one quick comparison though, for us to compare to last year, we would have to add in all other absences. These are only absences that have been tied directly to the family care leave. So this isn't
Including
all
the student
absence,
Including the
absences?
student absences?
No.
the student absence, but that,
Yeah, the table is just absent, so
Yeah.
I might have influenza and I'm absent and I'm in
Right.
the table.
Yeah, I'm just curious as to that impact as well.
Yeah.
Plus we were a 5-day for,
Mhm.
5 to 4
Yeah,
day,
there's a
we
few
should probably
things
have
that
it probably
changed.
reflects your statement about staff's probably very critical when they're gone now, because they have that day
Well, I
potentially.
think, yeah, everybody knows that we have the shortage, and so I think everybody's just really trying not to be gone unless they have to be.
So right now, if our teachers, are they allowed to choose so they're considered essential workers.
Mhm.
So if their spouse is quarantined, if they're an essential worker, doesn't that mean that, and I don't know if I understand this correct, so correct me if I'm wrong, doesn't that mean that they can still attend unless they're symptomatic?
They can, so like with the quarantine that we had last week over at Heights, we identified 8 staff members that we knew had been exposed, but we really sat down with each one of them to try and determine how exposed. We knew that they fit the definition, but we wanted to know just how compact that was and for how long and what the interaction was. And so we ended up quarantining 4 of the 8 and had the 4 others stay. If they choose to use that essential worker, they have to be able to keep that distance. They can't be within 6 feet and they have to be in a mask at all times.
So they are given choice then, is that what I'm understanding, that it's up to them or in
Yeah,
conjunction
in
with
the
you? Like there
beginning.
is conversations happening, is that?
Before
I'm
they were
understanding.
deemed essential workers, they were, so when school very first started, if somebody had a positive spouse, we generally followed those recommendations. I'm not pressing for people to come here if I know that they've had a lot of exposure.
Right, well, I appreciate just the
Yeah.
conversation, I mean, you guys sitting down and really looking at that and saying, is this truly something that we need to be aware of? And so I just wanted to see if that was an option. So, okay, thank you.
Are you gonna keep monitoring this?
I can, I really just created it today so that you guys had, a picture of what was going on as you looked at this, and it was on the agenda for tonight.
Yeah, I think
We
it's
can
gonna
keep
be
this-
important to do it, I think, because we're entering in a peak area as we start to grow again. But 2 months ago, when we fell to gray for a couple weeks, we didn't open up school when we went gray. And now I think we're gonna need as much data to look at for our own school district as we go forward in this. And I think the more data is better. I think the more data directly for our school district is.
Yeah, as far as impact, do we have kind of a ratio per sick COVID person, let's call, how many other people it would impact on average to pull them out of school?
Like a probability or whatever?
Like if my kid goes to school, is that gonna cause 18 people to go home for 2
It
weeks?
really depends on the situation.
Yeah.
I mean, we could pull
Their
worst
schedule.
case scenario, they're a high school student, they've gone to all 6 periods, all 7 periods that day, and they ate lunch in the cafeteria, close knit with their group of friends. It's
Yeah.
really, it's very case by case.
I'm just looking at numbers from Southwest Health District, and from 5 to 18 years old, we got 46 cases total. I don't know, and I'm still trying to figure out if that's overall forever and ever, or if that's real time, like today.
I think that's all.
I think that's
Overall,
overall, that
overall.
one is.
Then our absences reflect quarantines. So
Yeah.
those would
Or-
never show up.
Are those absences just quarantines, or are they people calling and say, my kid's not coming to school today?
These
Mm-hmm.
are everything.
Everything.
Absent due to illness. Yeah.
I'm nervous. I'm gonna be 100% honest. I don't know if it's a good idea to do middle school and high school next week. And the reason is, when you open 2 more schools, if everyone's drawing from that safe substitute pool, like we have unfilled positions right here. And right now, elementary is the one that really has the most need. Like high school, if it's an online day, they can fudge a little bit or cover classes, but if you open up both those schools, and we already know the numbers are going up, I mean, 1,300, 1,400, not in our area, but just the state generally speaking. And then you send a kid home whose parents has it, or they become one of those probable cases. We saw what happened on, two off with one probable case, where 130 kids out. Once you add all those schools back in, I mean, you can have one kid with COVID and quarantine 300 kids. I mean, maybe not quite 300, but if you figure 30 kids a class times 6 class periods, if they're doing the whole class, I don't know how they do it. If they just look at a seating chart and say you sat here, or if they do a whole class at a time. I don't know. I'm nervous. I know the kids want to get back to school. I know that my high schooler is struggling with the online stuff, but the reality of it is I really don't want to go backwards. And I would be sick if we bring all these high schooler kids back. We get in a week and have so many teachers out. They already got their schedules messed up. We promised them they could come back, and then we have to shut down all of our schools because we have no staff, because they're all out on quarantine or their spouses are out. And I mean, I would feel more comfortable if we said middle school can go back. We'll try it and see how it goes, but we're making the high school wait till January. And that's just my personal, we're almost to the red. We're back at 4.49. When we started these discussions and made these decisions, we were in the gray and yellow back and forth for weeks. And now we're almost to red, and our red is technically 1 day of online school. So to me, it doesn't really make sense. I would like to leave the elementary, and if we can get by and their staff is healthy and their kids are healthy, try and keep them in there as long as possible. The middle school can go both ways. The kids need to be there. So if we try it and have to go back, I'd feel better. But the high school, I just am so nervous. And I know the counselors have done all that work and stuff, but I don't know. I guess my risk level is a little lower right there right now because of the overall numbers and knowing what the staff, how many adults are getting it right now.
I guess for me, we've been inching our way through all this and watching the numbers and everything else, but we just haven't seen a blowout infection rate within Middleton that's causing these families to change their lives. But I know we're having a problem with 30 to 40% of these kids who are struggling online that 2 days. And I've got down the gangplank this far, opening up, and understanding there's a risk. We've made that clear to the public that there's a risk for that, but
We'll go back a week and then we'll have Thanksgiving week off.
and I just,
And
there's,
then you really have 3 weeks left, and then we'll have Christmas vacation. So I guess to me, if you're gonna push and try, and I know cases are up, I understand that, but Friday, I listened to probably at least 10 parents, and every single one of their high schoolers is struggling at least one class because the online is not consistent across the board, unfortunately. I wish I could say it is, but it's not.
My biggest fear is though, then we're gonna quarantine them all and you're gonna have 2 weeks of online classes.
Yeah, we don't know.
Like back to
That's
back.
the whole thing is.
But Derek, knowing how the health department does the quarantines, what are the odds that
The
your
health
kid's not gonna
department's
get out?
We're Middleton. We're not Ada County. We're not Caldwell or what have you. And I'm not saying that it, I understand the risk, absolutely, and I appreciate it and applaud it at the same time. But we've set an agenda to what we were doing, and so far, I don't see where we have gone away from it or have to go, because we're not in red right now. Yes, the kids are only going back to school for a week, but I agree with Pam too. Well, they're in for a week,
And for a week.
then they get a
tomorrow.
break.
Yeah.
Then they're back for 3 weeks. So if we eye on the super cautionary tail and go that wait and say, okay, let's wait till January. Well, what if things have not changed from now till January? Do we wait till February? Do we wait till March?
No.
Do we wait till April?
But I also think, I mean, look at those. I honestly don't think that the athletes in the winter are gonna have a chance to play sports. I don't think that our band, like, I really think that the quarantines are gonna be unreal. I think it's gonna be something that we've never imagined could happen so fast. And I think it's gonna hit faster than we think. But I think those cases are coming a lot stronger and faster. People aren't getting tested. But what's happening is they choose not to get tested and their employer says you have to get a test to come back. I know someone who had diagnosed with strep throat and influenza, or no, a sinus infection and strep throat. The employer said you can't come back till you have a negative COVID test. They waited 3 days, feeling good, went and got it, positive COVID test. So then their whole family was quarantined, their spouse was quarantined, and you hear about that stuff more and more. And I'm not saying that the tests are accurate or an end all, but I also feel like how mad are our kids and parents going to be when we say, yeah, come back, and now everyone's in quarantine for 2 weeks, so we're 100% online.
I think there's that risk anyways,
Yeah.
regardless of when you're
Regardless
back.
of if it's in January or if it's next week.
But
That's my opinion.
I think we also, I mean, to your point, we have to think about this as we move forward because, you know, I don't want to experiment with somebody else's kid, right? But we've given them clear options. One is you can do this online full time. The other is that we're going to go back. Are you ready for this? But in the same vein, we have to be ready to put the brakes on this thing. If it's red and they're saying, hey, bad news, we got, then all of a sudden, flip of overnight, everybody can be back home online. So
what happens next Monday when you say red? What happens next Monday when they update it and our number is over 5 and we're in red? What does that mean?
well, we already said that it was going to be something we would address at the end of that week to be dealt with that week. So they're in school a week.
Well, I guess, no,
And
so
the
like
teachers
Monday
want
when they're
advanced
supposed to go
learning.
back. So a week from today was the first day that everyone's supposed to go back. Let's say the health department updates this and it's over 5. Do we call an emergency meeting? Do we just say we're not going to do anything until we have no staff? Like what?
I think that's the questions I think we've been asked publicly is, okay, where is the stop line?
Yeah.
No, we wouldn't. I don't think we'd call a meeting for Monday. I think we're kind of on a 2-week cycle. That's been our plan. No, but we've also looked around the state and watched other school districts operate in red. One of the reasons we took, by our patrons' view, a conservative approach to this with 2 on 2 off at the beginning and not opening up because we wanted to watch Emmett and Payette. We wanted to watch our neighbors. They've struggled through. They've shut down for a couple of weeks or a day, but they've struggled through. There's not this complete crushing of school districts that have gone full time, and they're not the size of Middleton, but I used to get mad when I heard that we were operating in fear. We weren't operating in fear. We were operating by gathering the best data we had and watching our neighbors and continue to take data. And I think Kristen's sheet of absences is continued data that we can take to look so that we have information to pull the plug when we do go back to 2 on 2 off or back to 1 day on, whatever that is. But watching the whole school year in Idaho, I haven't seen any school district go red line. It just is horrible. And I've seen them shut down for a week or 2. I've seen them hold off a day and clean. But I know we have kids suffering who aren't learning online. And to me, that's still on the scales. That is still outweighing going. And yes, it could all blow up. I have no doubt about that it could. I just haven't seen it in the whole school year. And we've been hearing that it could, and we've been hearing that it could, and we've been holding on to, modifying some guidelines and holding on to the quarantine of 14 days. Emmett's 5-day quarantine. So we've been watching, and I just, like I said, I'm down the gangplank at this point in time.
I don't think it's too late to go back ever if there's a huge problem, and we're kind of guessing at the level of problem we're going to have because we haven't done it yet. We got to pull the trigger at some point.
Is quarantine something we could have a discussion about, open that discussion, but with the MEA and over the next month so that we don't get
I think
on the
it's,
back. But I just want to start the conversation here and say, okay, well, let's look at quarantine. They said if you have a positive COVID test, you have to quarantine for 2 months. So in my mind, that means that they're saying that you've had it. So wouldn't be that the same thing if you had an antibody test, positive antibodies, that you shouldn't have to quarantine either?
well, I think part of the problem is that we're being asked to make the healthcare decision for the school district as a school board.
Yeah.
And we've been getting educated and we've been doing, so everything that you brought up, is exactly spot on. Those are the questions we should be asking. And that you and continue to push and so quarantine, anything data, we need to continue to operate and take in information, and Southwest District Health and administration and the MEA on our parents. And
Well, I just think if we can start that conversation tonight, like I would like to have more in-depth discussion and maybe look at our quarantine procedures, and maybe that's something that we could look at, by the next month. So that's 4 weeks. The kids get in school, we'll have the week of, if that's something that we need to address or look at and see how it affects our absences, maybe just have that conversation over the next month and revisit it next month when we talk about this plan. I don't intend for any action tonight. I just wanted to start the discussion. Make sure everyone knew that that's what we wanted to, or that I feel like we could discuss a little bit and see if we can gather more information. I know last time we met, you thought maybe the CDC would have different guidelines regarding that, or somebody. For the
yeah,
health
the
department.
Southwest District Health thought they might come up with something nationally because they were trying to.
Did you hear anything,
They
Kristen?
said 3 months now is what Southwest District Health came out with. So once you've had a positive test, you should have 3 months that your body is fairly resistant to.
Have they said anything about the antibody testing, or it's just a positive COVID test and that's the only way that they can?
That's all I've heard. I
Okay.
don't, they may have said something else. I just heard on the positive test.
Okay. So 3 months then with the positive test.
Which is a long time.
So I think we should talk to Emmett School District because they've done 5 day. They've done a 5 day is what their quarantine is, not 14, 10, 14. So
Which logically to me, that doesn't make sense. Just, it takes, if you understand, the incubation period,
14
5
days.
days is about, usually
get a
within
lot of
5 to
people
7
sick.
days, if you're gonna get it, you're gonna get it. Pretty typical. 14, I think, is a little extreme, but 5 days to me is a little short.
Yeah.
maybe it's 5 business days.
Maybe it is, maybe they go by.
There you go.
COVID doesn't work on the weekend. But yes, I think we need to include the MEA on these discussions, and I think, it's all.
Okay, well, that's all the discussion I think.
That would lead us into executive session. Do I get a motion?
Per Idaho Code 74-206B, to consider the evaluation, dismissal, or disciplining of, or to hear complaints or charges brought against a public officer, employee, staff member, or individual agent or public school student. I'd like to make a motion that we go into executive session for that reason.
Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call vote to go in?
Trustee Moore,
Yes.
trustee Dempsey,
Yes.
trustee Wagner,
Yes.
trustee McConkey,
Yes.
trustee Adams.
Yes. We're now officially in All right, I'd entertain a motion to come out of executive session.
I make a motion to come out of executive session.
Second?
All those in favor, or roll call to come out?
Trustee Moore,
Yes.
trustee Dempsey,
Yes.
trustee Wagner,
Yes.
trustee McConkey,
Yes.
trustee Adams.
Yes. We have no actions out of executive session. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right.
Aye, motion carries 5-0. Thanks, everyone.